To lead this panel, like I said, yeah, the founder of Bud.com and a bunch of other things. What's your last name? That's what I thought. Please welcome Dean Arbet.
Thank you so much, Ngayo, for not much.
Thanks.
Yeah. Guys.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. You guys have your mics. Thank you guys all for sticking around for the last panel, which is definitely the best panel. So, well worth it. So you'll tell us after in about a half hour. We're talking about packaging with essentially some elite folks to speak on that. Packaging is anything but an afterthought. For those that have been in this space and operated, they will tell you that. It is not the last thing you think of. It is either the first or second. I will tell you a little bit about myself and then have my co-panelists here introduce themselves. How I'm relevant here is, like Ngayo said, I run Bud.com, which is a direct-to-consumer e-commerce store. On that store, we run about 160 of our own SKUs across 9 categories. So we're packaging all that ourselves. Very, very different products and very different systems. Additionally, I also run Wagner DeMoss, which is a hardware manufacturing. We make processing and pre-roll equipment for the regulated market and the hemp market, but lots of packaging considerations there as well with pre-rolls. When you make a joint, it's if it doesn't fit right, it's not going to work right. If it doesn't preserve the terps, so packaging matters across the board in every product. It doesn't just make it look good and make it stand out amongst competitors. There's function in them. They keep the product better, and that's what's huge. So let me have you guys introduce yourselves first.
Hi, my name is Lucas Jarzim. I own a company called Good to Grow Solutions. We specialize in customized packaging to incorporate CR functionality and food-grade products.
My name is Jesse Dixon. I'm the Vice President of the Wellness Packaging Division for GPA Global. We're a global packaging company, and I'm proud to have created and run the division that focuses on the cannabis sector.
My name is Cyrus Hambaz. I'm CEO of The Loud Plug. We're a licensed producer from Toronto, Canada.
Hi, my name is Luis Pelonieta. I'm from the Paxson Group. I am the Director of Sales. We manufacture packaging equipment to automate packaging solutions, anywhere from entry level to high automation.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to go first question, direct to Jesse here. And this is one that just sort of hits flat. No pulling, no punches. What's the biggest consideration when choosing packaging for a customer with cannabis products, as far as you, from your perspective, as the maker of end-user packaging? What's their biggest consideration?
Great question. Thank you, Dean. You know, I think it's different for everybody. Is what does packaging mean to you? For some folks, it might be sustainability. For some folks, it might be the unboxing experience, the user experience. You might want brand recognition, so you might focus on branding. At the end of the day, a lot of folks are going to look at costs, which can dictate your packaging choices. But the reality is, it kind of depends on how you want to present your brand. And we've worked with folks that hyper-focus on the environment and use paperboard solutions or great sliding tins from beautiful companies like CasePack. You know, there's no one size that fits all, and you know, I think it's important to find a packaging partner that can offer you the solutions catered to your brand. So, yeah, that's how I'd answer that question.
Lots of choices.
Lots of choices, man.
Let's take it down the line.
Yeah, just to, I completely agree with Jesse. We tailor solutions for our clients as well. Generally speaking, price plays the biggest variable in choosing packaging. We try and incorporate low-cost solutions while managing to provide brand recognition. Recently in Canada, we've had changes in legislation of packaging to include see-through windows. That's been happening in the US for a long time, so we're a little behind on the legislation changes. With that, we incorporate brand details like logos within the bag and incorporating all sorts of see-through windows. That way we can get exposure to brands without having to increase the price of the products. So I think that's really important. In the cannabis industry in Canada, price compression is a real thing. In the US, it's a real thing. If you can reduce costs or keep costs the same while incorporating brand variables, it's really important from a marketing standpoint.
Agreed. Cyrus?
Yeah, I think I concur with my colleagues. For me, when I'm choosing, let's say, a particular product that is going to go into the market, definitely I look at, let's say, for flower, what is the bag appeal is going to look like beyond the packaging? How much of that size of the bag, according to the amount of cannabis that is inside, or whether it's a pre-roll, what is the functionality of that packaging? Not only has to look good, obviously for me it's kind of on the hierarchy, but beyond that, does the function look good, and where would that packaging put your brand? Obviously, with the Loud Plug, we do a lot of, I think, different colors and things that come to light. So I'm always looking at every angle. So for those of you that are out there and maybe starting in this industry and looking at a very tight regulation today, I can tell you myself, back in 2018, I was looking at a lot of publicly traded companies going up to bat, and the industry was a certain way. In 2021, when the Loud Plug started, we started shaking the industry in a very different way. We looked at it as just like any other CPG product, that you got to appeal to your consumer. Sure, it's about cost, it's about looks, it's about everything under the sun, and I would say prepare for the future, for the brands to arrive. And when the brands come, I think the industry in Germany and the rest of Europe is going to follow suit what happened in the US and Canada, and I think Europe will be there hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years, but it will follow suit. So the marketing aspect of it, and how you present your packaging to that consumer, it's just as important as the quality inside the bag.
That's a great answer. I want to make one distinction, Luis, before you take it. Cyrus is an operator, and understand that the nuance of his answer very much comes from that context, is that he's an operator. He sells a lot of weed, he sells products, and he happens to also be in packaging. So his view is a little bit different, just something to note. What's even more different is Luis doesn't just sell, Paxium doesn't just sell packaging, they also sell machines. So maybe for equipment, you can apply the question that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when it comes to automation equipment, something that Jesse said, choose a partner. So I think like when you come and try to buy a piece of equipment, you're thinking of, okay, who's the supplier that I can buy it from? But more than buying from a supplier, you should be looking at who is going to be your partner. And then when you apply that philosophy, you're looking to a different perspective when choosing the right company that is for you. So what that means is, like, you want to choose a partner that has what it takes to support you, that has the know-how, that understands flexibility in legislation, as you mentioned, that can be with you not for the immediate time, but also that is able to be with you as you grow, as the legislation changes, as everything goes out there, right? So no different when you have surgery. You're going to go out for surgery, and then are you going to go and find the cheapest doctor, or are you going to find the right doctor? Or when you try to find a wife, are you going to get married with the first one that comes by, or are you going to wait and find the right one? The cheapest one. There you go. So that applies to us as suppliers and partners. So my suggestion to you that you're looking at right now into choosing who is the right supplier, I think that you want to learn more about the company behind the equipment from an equipment perspective. You want to know that the company, it is going to be there for you, that has the right resources to support you, not only financially, but also from the technical know-how, from the engineering standpoint, and for the ability of the industry itself because even though a lot of the technology may be relatable from maybe food packaging, there are nuances specific to the cannabis industry that you want to leverage that knowledge from companies that have been doing it for a while.
If you're looking at hardware, buying equipment in the space, highly recommend looking at companies or providers with a track record, period.
I'd like to maybe add something to that, just
Please.
from my personal, experience. When we first started as a small company, one of the things that really affected us was, as you said, you got to have a reliable partner that can deliver on time. You could either lose tens of thousands of dollars because your packaging wasn't there, or variable information for lot sizes and things that has to be, printed, quite fast for you to meet that PO that is coming in and send it to your production. So, or it could be a difference between millions of dollars throughout the year as you didn't pick up the right partner. So do your due diligence, make sure they can deliver, do a great forecasting. We ended up actually buying a packaging company, later on, but what you said, we really experienced it hands-on when you don't have that, good partner right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So that's almost like get a clue, because a monster producer, that tells you the relevance, the value of packaging. When he ran into problems, it impacted his business. He went and did his own thing. I did the same thing. Yeah. That's how it works. It's that important. How important is it globally? What are the trends? Lucas inferred to some really interesting things. And so that's sort of the next question to the group here. This is an very international panel. What are the global trends that you see in packaging, very specifically cannabis packaging?
Yeah, so I think when everyone starts off in every jurisdiction, comes from a medical standpoint, everything is very pharmaceutical, everything's buttoned up. A lot of the people that were pioneering the industry came from the sector. It was a combination of pharmacists and drug dealers. So you see white bags, white jars, black jars, everything behind a counter. And as money inflowed into the industry, the types of packaging that came in weren't tied to automation equipment. They were anything from friendly to fill, anything from price affordable. So you'll see that trend. That's going to happen everywhere in the world. Money's going to inflow. We want to be the biggest brand. We want to be the biggest company. And then all of a sudden, you see massive price compression because you get an inflow of demand, of supply, and the demand stays consistent. The patients might not increase so much, but you get all these companies throwing money at it. And even more so now that you have importation happening from other countries like Canada. So unless government steps in, puts tariffs, which is happening in Israel, or anti-dumping laws, again happening in Israel, you're going to see massive price compression. What happens then is, along with the companies that go bankrupt, packaging prices drop dramatically. So everyone then fluctuates to the cheapest option. Okay, what's that? That's pop-top tubes or Mylar bags. You can't get cheaper than that. And then you see a massive dissipation of brands. Okay, everyone's running the same packaging products. There's no marketing budget. No one runs a marketing campaign. You can't put ads out on Facebook. You can't put ads out on the TV. Okay, what happens next? Well, everything's the same and everyone differentiates from quality of product. Okay, well, then you run events. You try and get people to understand that your brand's different, and you go from there. And then companies, as price compression reduces, companies then understand that it's really important to maintain a consistent product that you see and recognize the brand, and that ties in dramatically with the packaging you're doing because you can't market anywhere else. In Canada, people know about cannabis products off Reddit. They go on a Reddit forum, they see that, oh, this cannabis product is hot, or this had too many stems, or the burn on the pre-roll wasn't right, it was too gray or too black or whatever that might be. But that's where you're getting all your influx of reviews. It's not at the OCS, it's not at SQDC, or it's at one of these festivals, one of these fairs that we have. So I think brand differentiator, product differentiation through packaging, while providing an affordable solution is really, really important, and then being in front of regulation changes. Like You know it's coming up. You've heard it's coming up 6 months in advance. Plan for that. You need to plan for that because everyone else is planning for that. Everyone else is pivoting. And if you're not differentiating your product, it's really hard. I used to move packs of weed when I was younger. It's really hard if you're not a smoker, if you can't understand what the product is, to know the difference between a AAA or a quads. There's not much difference. And so what really goes around is, word of mouth. And if you're not providing a brand that can kind of showcase that you have a good product and market it through packaging, you're behind. Yeah.
It's, you just mentioned something. We have, regulation comes in, for instance, it's a massive disruptor with new regs to packaging, invariably. I just realized here in the EU, you may have very different packaging requirements from country to country. That'll make it even more fun. Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of a doomsday approach on cost-effective packaging, and I kind of disagree with the premise that good packaging has to be cheap. The reality is you can, with embellishments and the use of certain materials, you can have really high-quality packaging that meets your goals for a low-cost solution. And I think, the trend is, what's cost-effective and how can I market my brand through my packaging, but also, and again, I might be going off base here, but to me, packaging is the anticipation of happiness, right? It's the moment before you get to that product. It's Christmas morning. It's that vessel that gets you to that end thing that you're really excited for. In this case, it's cannabis. And I think there's ways to elicit that response and that feeling with folks. And I find that a lot of the trends that our brands in the States are doing, probably less so Canada, is using mixed materials and having an unboxing experience that gets somebody excited and makes it just that, an experience. So packaging isn't just a product, isn't just a vessel to hold your product. It really is an experience. And I find the brands that are succeeding in the States are finding ways to procure cost-effective packaging that does just that. So
absolutely, it becomes a differentiator, and the top brands in California have very unique packaging. Yeah. Every single one. Their packaging is part of their model. The extent of how rich the packaging is, and part of that is because we don't have access to a lot of mainstream media, and so we have influencers that will unbox something, and that's how you will get a ton of visibility. And so you make some rich, compelling packaging for them. It serves a multitude of purposes.
Yeah, and
right?
Sustainability is still ever present, although people argue you got to keep the lights on before you take care of Mother Earth. But the reality is, it doesn't have to be that expensive to have eco-friendly solutions, whether it's the use of post-consumer recycled content. It's not that it's not that much more expensive to use recycled plastics for a recycled container as opposed to using 100% virgin plastics or paperboard that's FSC certified. The price jump sometimes is construed as more significant than it is. So again, for me, I think the brands that are doing well and some of the trends are creating an experience, focus on sustainability while meeting a low-cost solution.
Well, and if your part of your ethos is that sustainability and that authenticity, and that's how you're connecting with your customers, if your packaging doesn't sort of address those same things, then you're losing.
100%.
Cyrus?
I don't think I have much to add to this. I think I agree with everything you said. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Luis?
Well, I mean, definitely very good, interesting points to talk about, okay? Because packaging, as they were saying, it makes an experience, right? So when the question is, how do I create a brand? How do we create a brand? We look examples in Canada, we look examples in the United States. But here in Europe, where marketing is really minimalistic, where they're limiting you, they're putting a chain and preventing you from doing that, then it begs the question, how do you create a brand for yourselves? And the question, the answer to that is you want to give the experience. I think what he was saying here, Jesse, was you create the experience. And to build a brand, that experience has to be repeatable every time I open a package. Every time that I go and then consume and open, I want to have the same experience. And the way that you can guarantee that experience for your consumer and being able to separate yourself and create a brand for yourself is through very strict quality controls, good quality packaging, and automation from a packaging perspective that will enable producers to do it again and again and again every time, rather than, oh, today's batch was great, it went to market, it was awesome, the product did what it was supposed to do, but then what happens next time? Can I repeat it? How can I repeat it? And then if we're going through Reddit, if we're going through social media, if we're going through the experience, you want to make sure you guarantee that experience every time. And that's where, again, automation can be a good part of that process. Good packaging could be also part of that process, helping you create a brand without having something to put on your back, without having to put like a good marketing campaign. But the experience will be, the story will be told by the consumer who is ultimately consuming your product.
Yeah, I just want to add to this. I completely agree with the experience aspect. It's really important that someone opens up the package, is very happy with the product that they're receiving. I think Cyrus brought up bag presence. You want the joints not to be too small. Don't feel too small in the bag that you're opening up, or the flour is not in too small of a bag and you're opening up. Bag appeal is a really important thing. I just want to add to what I was saying. It's really important to understand the cycles of the industry. It starts from a medical standpoint. You get very basic packaging and massive packaging restrictions. So a white jar is a white jar. A white Mylar bag is a white Mylar bag. It doesn't shift. It's really hard to build a brand on packaging that's the same. And I think being ahead of what the regulations changes are going to be is extremely important. As soon as you start adding colors, then you can brand a little bit different. As soon as you allow for different variable packaging, you're allowing for cardboard containers, you're allowing for glass tubes, you're allowing for glass jars, then you can change the type of packaging that you're using and you're branding your company around. And then when you have sustainable regulation put into place, that then adds to the complexity of what people are going to be offering to their customer base.
Yeah. One last trend, and I was thinking about was something that Lucas said in his first statement, and then picking up on Luis was saying, was I think over the years, a lot of the brands that we work with certainly launched a bunch of packages with us that may have not been automation friendly, and then over time they realized, ooh, how can I save costs? It's not just the packaging item, right? The labor cost can be significantly more than the per unit packaging price. So I think to those who are working in this relatively new market, a piece of advice is start working with an automation vendor, work with your packaging vendor, and connect them.
Yes.
Say, hey, why don't you meet Luis, learn about some of his equipment, and then you can tailor your jar, your box to his equipment, and then you come together as a team and say, hey, not only here is a great box that meets all your goals, but it can be automated with that piece of equipment. And connecting those pieces early on, and I've worked with a lot of Luises and amazing folks at Paxium and other automated equipment providers. Doing that earlier than later will behoove everyone, and I think that's something we learned in the USA market is over time. They said, oh, wait, after the fact, hey, can you connect with Luis? And then come to us with a turnkey solution, and I think that's very applicable to this market as it's just getting going.
You have to consider those situations at the outset. Yep. Not in the middle, not at the end. That's why packaging is, and the lead time on packaging, essentially you should be looking at packaging months and months ahead of your launch. Just a fact.
Yeah,
sorry.
Well, I mean, it started with what you said. Like, packaging is, for the most part, an afterthought for producers.
And it shouldn't be.
But that's where, our advice to you is like start looking from an early stage, because eventually it's going to be a very big impact on your whole process later on, and typically they're at the 11th hour trying to figure it out, and you're like, oh, I just wish I could have done this weeks ago or months ago where I had the opportunity. But another misconception, again, when it comes to automation is thinking, oh, I'm not too big for automation. I'll worry about it when I get to it. But if you can start preparing for automation right now, and you can talk to us and people that have been in the industry for many years, we can help you be ready for when the moment comes. And then you can start working with materials and bags and jars and stuff like that are automation ready for the future. And then also, not all automation has to be full automation. There's also semi-automatic processes that may be able to allow you to start somewhere and allowing you to pivot as the legislation changes, because like in Canada it was at the beginning, or in the US, like legislation is a moving target. It's trying to shoot a target every time, then they move your target every day. And you just don't know what's going to happen next month, and you don't know what's going to happen next year. And that's okay too. You're going to say it's challenging. However, though, if you have the right pieces of equipment and partners behind you, will enable you to pivot to where you need to be at and ultimately remain profitable. Because I think like one big mistake that people are doing at the beginning, I guess, in Canada is like thinking like, I can't remember who said, oh, we're going to go and conquer the world, right? Like, I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to make millions of dollars, yet forgetting that you're dealing with a product that ultimately will be like anybody else's. You got to look at the economics of your business case. You got to say, I got to make money. We're here to make money. And how do you make money? Well, ensuring that what you're selling, you can be profitable. And how can you be profitable if it's a race to the bottom? Well, you got to make sure that your costs are lower. How can your costs be lower? By automation is one way, by having the right suppliers is the other way. You know, like you start looking at all the different avenues and branches of your business where you, again, if you start thinking like it's not that special when it comes to the basic economics, when you take that away and then you start looking at it from a business perspective, you can definitely be ready to be there for the long term and be stable and profitable as the market changes.
No doubt, thank you. I want to, actually, we keep touching on one of the things, it's not to scare you guys, it's just a very matter-of-factly, there's disruption with packaging in cannabis. Every time new market, new packaging. New regs in an existing market, new packaging. One of the most disruptive events, I think, in North America for operators was child-proof packaging. It's something that you guys, it's now a standard. Unfortunately, it's also the reason, it's a very, very sort of anchor reason why we are one of the worst industries as far as our eco effect. Way too much garbage. When you walk around California, you see, unfortunately, pop tops everywhere. There's so much packaging and so many requirements that I heard the panel, not the last one, the one before, I think he said anecdotally that it's the worst polluter, that we are now the worst polluter of any vertical. Again, it was anecdotally. I have not checked that. But I think we all know that there's a problem. I think when I go to a dispensary and I buy a joint that is in a tube that's then in a cardboard box that's then overwrapped for a little tiny joint. So it kind of hits in the heart, because I think a lot of us are in cannabis because we think of things in a certain way. And I think sustainability is massive. So that's what I don't know that there are any solutions here, but we got a lot of really smart guys out here that understand the subject matter. And so that's what I want to throw out there is, what are the ideas? How we can lessen the impact we're making on landfills, how there can be less packaging on the street, and we still protect, obviously, who needs to be protected, what's intended by the regulators, right? Childproof is there for a reason, and I think none of us disagree with that. Is there a better way to do it? Simply.
Yeah, so I think it's a two-prong attack. One, it has to come from the regulators, first and foremost. Quebec, which is a province of Canada, has done an exceptional job at creating sustainable governance. They look at the inputs of the materials that you're using. They award a value to that. They look at whether or not the materials that you're using are manufactured locally. They look at whether or not the product can be recycled. So that's different than using PCR or some sort of sustainable packaging as an input. And then they look at the proximity of procurement of the goods. So that's a bit different than where the products are manufactured. So based on that criteria, they award you a number. and if you're bidding on a SKU, if you're entering to win that SKU, you're ranked. And whether or not you are more sustainable, or your product comes from a more locally sourced product, or your packaging comes from a more locally sourced product, you might be given a higher likelihood to get that SKU. Sort of like the basketball lottery. Teams in the last seed are more likely to get the first pick. So I think that's a really important thing to be doing. And so you're awarding SKUs not just based off price competition, but also sustainable packaging. So that's one part. The second part is that's from a supplier level. I think from a consumer basis, you need to add something in. You have beer cans at the end of a night of drinking, you put that on the side of the street, and someone's going to collect those beer cans and make some money out of that, or you can recycle them yourself. The same thing can be said about glass bottles. I think from the government standpoint, on a consumer level, there should be rebate programs put into place for plastics. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could be a penny. It could be a half a penny. It could be something. And I think that would help dramatically reduce the amount of plastics on the streets and move them to a more sustainable place. I think those are a two-prong effect, one from a supplier standpoint, one from a consumer standpoint, to reduce the amount of influx of waste materials.
This is super insightful. Thank you so much. And by the way, I had no idea about Quebec's regs accounting for that. Very cool, insightful. Thank you, Lucas. Jesse?
Thanks, Dean. Good answer, Lucas.
Very good.
Yeah, man. I think you had asked what solutions we have, or what suggestions you have, or if there's solutions out there, and I think that there are. I feel the need to defend the box. As a packaging guy, I grew up in a family, and my father was in packaging, so I've been around it for my 42 years, and I love it. And the reality is there is sustainable packaging. There's paperboard cartons with a child-resistant solution that's all made from paperboard that can be produced in the United States, lowering the carbon footprint of bringing things from overseas and transportation. And you can utilize, responsibly forested paper with FSC paper stock. I believe there's great plastic solutions that are recyclable. Although plastic gets a bad rap, the fact is PET is extremely recyclable. And then you sell it, you purchase a tin for your pre-rolls or for your gummies. I know gummies aren't legal in Germany yet, but a lot of people have a hard time throwing away those tins. In fact, I've seen a lot of them turn into little candle containers, or I know I have a bunch where I've got my coins and keys. So there's ways of using mixed materials that actually don't hurt the environment as much as we believe they do. Now, single pop-top tubes are certainly an issue. Mylar bags are an issue, but there's also polypropylene Mylar bags that remove the foil liner that still maintain product freshness that can be recycled. So, there's nuances to it, and I think, find the packaging provider that understands that, and look at the materials and look at the manufacturing processes as much as the recyclability of the finished good.
That's so. Those are great points that you go back to. The material is there if the desire is there, and so I'm almost like I think about that in the context of Lucas's answer and the sort of discovery that Quebec actually grades and gives you. There's an advantage for a company for using that. Super interesting. That we don't have that in the States anywhere. Love to hear what you got to say on that, Jesse.
So,
I'm sorry, Luis.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So in that aspect, I think like what Lucas was saying, I think it comes on 2 points. Number one, it has to come from the government that dictates the legislation that forces a producer to package certain way, right? So can I package the product in the most efficient way? Absolutely, yes. Technology exists. We have been doing it for years, 30 years plus. In the food industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, in the cosmetic industry. So it's not about is the technology available or not available. It's like, can we use it for this market, yes or no? And that comes first and foremost from the legislation that is particular for each country or region, right? Now, from the second part, like using recyclable materials, using more eco-friendly materials, the answer is the technology is there as well. So part of Packaging Group, we have a company that manufactures equipment south of Frankfurt, so German-based. It's been in business for hundreds of years, okay? So now, within that division, they do a lot for pharmaceutical industry. And then I was just witnessing paper-based packaging for the pharmaceutical industry already that can be used within the European market. Now the question is, like, can we use that for the cannabis industry? And the answer is, there's no way. There's no reason why we shouldn't or we couldn't. It's more about, is the government going to allow the industry to use that package? And then what happens is, I think that it comes now with the stigma of the product itself and wanting to overprotect now a product, that there's just no enough data right now for them to make a judgmental decision. And they're saying, like, sometimes you said, hey, can I package this? Like, even for us on a packaging supplier perspective, saying, hey, I don't need that much equipment to do all of this. Like, at the beginning in Canada, we're forced to use a jar that had to be in a carton, that had to be in another place, right? Like, we're looking into now 3 types of packaging. Now, it took months or like years to say, okay, fine, forget the carton, we don't need it, okay? But all those years, like, they were forced people to buy equipment, to buy materials, extra packaging, create, like, it goes and creates a chain effect. But now it starts with, again, being able and having the open discussions. And don't forget that countries have already tried it, and they should be learning and using that as leverage.
It makes all the sense in the world to me. Cyrus?
Yeah, I think, a lot of the things we talk about inside companies, outside of the packaging companies, and what the agenda of the packaging companies is, the reality is maybe us licensed producers, we got to engage the government. And if the government make a change, trust me, each one of us is going to follow suit really quick. And the other part of it is educating the consumer. Yep. We're giving the consumer what they're picking on the shelves. Because if I don't give them what they want, and I want to be, conscious of the planet and everything else, I won't be paying the bills, and our company will close. So there is a gap right now. Yep. There is the educational gap where we need to educate let's say, for instance, in Canada, educate Health Canada and lobby them and have some kind of a voice that is united, because whether you're in US, Europe, Canada, we're so divided as an industry. Even inside our own country, we can't get along.
What you said that makes the most sense is getting the consumers. Right. That's the massive group. Those are the voters. Those are the constituents. Right. Nobody, I mean, who's for, pollution? Who likes pollution? That's a great point. And I think we need to be louder about it. I think you're making the point because I think we're saying, hey, we need to go to the legislators. The legislators are the ones that can stop this madness. They're the same legislators that are upping the excise tax on producers whose prices are, whose margins are shrinking. So it's just...
I'll give you an example, for instance, and how far we are. So everybody thinks Canada is this safe haven for cannabis. Everybody sings Kumbaya. And in each municipality in Canada, you have to either opt in as a dispensary to sell cannabis, and you could basically not do anything and be opt out. And in that municipality, cannabis cannot be sold legally. In the city of Toronto, where I live, in the southern Horseshoe Valley, it's over 17 million people live. But in certain pockets, there's blackouts. So even the city that I live in, which is Vaughan, it's about an hour away from where my facility is. It's a city of 500,000 people. There is no cannabis. I went to the council and the mayor. I presented them, forced them to vote on it again. I wanted the reason and give them reasons why you should opt in and let cannabis be sold. You're literally giving money to organized crime. My kids and family and friends are buying cannabis that we don't know where it comes from. And when you get these type of gaps in the industry, and you're talking to a mayor about cannabis, he literally turned around, a mayor in Canada where weed is legal, he goes, I don't see anybody knocking on my door to want cannabis. And I was like, I was dumbfounded. You think people in Vaughan are different than people that live in downtown Toronto? And this is the kind of ignorance that we're dealing with, right? Sorry to get off topic, but here is a city in Vaughan, the mayor is telling me this, and I felt like saying, hey, would you like me to go and come back with 5,000 signatures that there is people in Vaughan that want cannabis? So anyways, just thought I'd share that one.
I could tell you're an operator from that sentiment. It's frustrating to operate. I think we've given you guys a lot about packaging. I think the big takeaways are make sure you're working with a strong partner. Make sure that you allow an on-ramp. Give yourself time to plan the packaging. Give yourself time to plan how you're going to execute on the packaging. How's the joint or the gummies going in the packaging? Answer all those questions. We've got a little bit of time. Anyone got any questions? 1, 2, I got Ngayo's falling asleep. Any packaging questions? Any exciting packaging questions? Any non-exciting packaging questions? We'll answer all of them.
I think you educated them to the fullest.
We have a question or no?
What role does glass play? Because I had a discussion yesterday, and I was told that glass played a bigger role than expected.
Class?
Glass.
Oh, glass.
Glass packaging.
I guess in terms of being clear, glass is a higher end product in general. It's generally used in premium products. There's not as much leaching in glass products. So as a material input, it's even though it's the heaviest and most costly to ship, it keeps your product the freshest. Again, there's arguments against that. You're using generally a PET lid with a foil liner, and that foil liner could be leaching terpenes as well. So generally speaking, though, it's sought out as a premium product for packaging.
What do you guys say, especially you, about flower glass or bags?
For me right now is bags, and no way glass for the foreseeable future. I've seen other brands have a disaster when they're using glass by breakage, trucks, handling. You got to think of all those things. As you said, glass is great, looks great. We're looking at sales and just turning over those products as fast as we can. We don't need headaches, and also, as you said, weight is another issue. Those trucks, and with the cost of fuel going up, it doesn't make it really affordable right now.
Thank you very much.
Great question. You guys, any more questions? No? All right, time for a drink. Thank you guys. This has been the Packaging, High on Packaging channel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. You did a great job.